Welcome to OLC 40. This is term 1A, class 31, and we are looking at assignment 41 and 42 today, part A and part B. This is Jillian Percy, and today is Tuesday, October 29th, and 2024. All right, as always, our contact information. Okay. If you want to join the Zoom, nnec.on-ca.zoom.us/j/924-617-3555. You can also get that link from your DEC. You can call into the studio to ask me a question, 1-800-465-7144. If you don't want to talk on air, but want to ask me a question anyways afterwards, I'll be happy to talk to you. The office number is 1-800-667-3703, extension 2211. Remember that there's no secretary past 4:30, so if you call after that time, I won't necessarily get the phone call. My email is jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. That is probably the most reliable way to reach me because I check it absolutely constantly throughout the day, okay? Any assignments, though, send that to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. That way the secretary can log that you submitted the work and she has a copy of it. So if anything ever happened to me, she could still access it. Whether it goes to my email, no one else can access it but me. Make sure on every assignment you have your full name, the course name, the assignment number, and the name on every single assignment. Also label if it's the rough or the good draft of a writing assignment. It's really easy for things to get mixed up. So it's just really important to have those labels. And again, not just in the email, because I don't see the email. The email goes to the secretary. I just see the actual documents. So that's one reason why you want to make sure your name's on the documents, not just on the email, okay? All right, if you want to, you can reach out to me on the Facebook page. I try to text us at least once a day, but it's not as reliable as the email, okay? It's G Percy Wassa with a capital G, capital P, a space between Percy and Wassa, and a capital W. And then 2 different spots you can go in YouTube. I've got my own personal channel here, or I guess my own work channel here, which is still G Percy Wassa. And then if you hit the playlist tab, what will come up on the very first section is all the videos for this course, which we're almost finished. We only got this last week to do. And then if you wanted to instead, there's kind of a mega YouTube channel that we're developing this year. And on it will be all the courses that we've run this year, okay? So it's kind of your one-stop shop if you're taking multiple courses. The one thing about my other channel is I have things on there from last year, which is helpful if you're looking for information on a course that I haven't taught yet. Like the English 4E course is there. I feel like there's one more course there I can't think of. Oh, the English 3E, which we're not really running this year, but it's there. So that can be useful as well. All right, looking at our learning goals for today. After I complete this class and these assignments, I should be able to correctly write sentences that use parentheses or brackets, review the use of idioms and how to figure out their meaning in the context of a sentence, use their knowledge of the organizational structure of different types of fiction and nonfiction narratives to identify the sequence of events and main ideas. Before reading, use appropriate strategies to activate and build on prior knowledge of the content of narrative selections. Before reading, choose an appropriate approach to reading a text to match the purpose for reading. Use appropriate strategies to track and record ideas and information while reading, and also use appropriate strategies to make connections, to locate information, to make inferences and interpretations about different types of texts, including narrative texts. Okay. Oh, yeah, I think so. So for this activity, you're going to use reading strategies to identify the main idea and the supporting details in a news article. And you're going to write a summary of the text. You need to report the main idea in your opening sentence, and your other sentences should give the major points of the story. Minor details do not need to be included. The summary should make sense as a piece of writing by itself. In other words, somebody who read it would understand what's going on without needing to read the entire original article, okay? Look at the success criteria that's in the unit to understand what is needed in order to get good marks for this assignment. You can also see the rubric I'm using to mark this, which will have a lot of similarity, of course. And your summary should be at least 6 to 10 sentences in length and should cover all the major important points of the article. The rough copy is 10 marks and the good copy is 10 marks. So here is the article. This is called A Fresh Fix for Unsafe Water on First Nations Reserves. And then it has a little subtitle, UBC Students Craft a Blueprint for a Healthy, Reliable Supply Collaboratively by Katie Hyssop, 13th of January, 2014. As of last October, almost 20% of First Nations communities in Canada either had to boil or couldn't drink the water coming out of their taps. That's in spite of the fact that by the end of 2014, the federal government will have spent about $3 billion on water and wastewater systems in First Nations communities since 2006. That's just 8 years. In British Columbia, 31 out of 324 First Nations water systems were under a boil water order as of this month, according to the First Nations Health Authority. But that doesn't take into account the almost 50% of First Nations water systems that were deemed high risk for reasons ranging from poor infrastructure and water contamination to inadequate record keeping and untrained maintenance workers in BC. The health authority emphasizes poor water quality is typical for all rural and remote communities, not just those of First Nations. Majid Masena, a professor of chemical engineering at the University of British Columbia, said the problem isn't a lack of investment by the federal government, it's a lack of consultation with First Nations people over how to fix it. The Aboriginal Water Health Project pairs students and researchers with 3 First Nations bands whose water systems range in quality from excellent to poor. The goal is to use community involvement and education to improve on-reserve water systems and empower First Nations people to play a more active role in solving water issues. Chlorine is controversial in many circles, and that's no different in First Nations community. For First Nations, water is a gift from the Creator. It's sacred. It's so pure when it's there in nature. Anything added to the water is like adding poison, Moseni said. When I go to a community and say, this water needs to be treated, let's add some chlorine, people don't accept it. Even though there might be some funding from government to put a treatment plant there, when there's no acceptance from the community, then that's going to be useless. People are not going to take care of that treatment system. They're not going to drink that water. So it's going to be wasted. The water quality goes bad because they don't maintain it. But when the necessity of chlorine is patiently explained, minds are changed. Jim Brown, maintenance worker for the Lytton First Nation, said the biggest issue members of his reserve have with chlorine is the bad taste. But the elders at least know it's necessary, even if others complain. They know that in the past, a lot of their children died from E. coli, and that is in the water, he said. An outside engineer hired by the band suggested the community dig a well, but minerals in the groundwater would have meant additional water treatment that the Federal Aboriginal Affairs Ministry found too costly. Brown turned to Moseni, who brought the issue to fourth-year engineering grads, who, after much consultation with Brown and the community, devised a much cheaper ultraviolet treatment solution to the water systems problem. And this was slightly edited for lengths because it was a little bit longer originally. All right, so after you've read that, we want to go through and create a summary of it. So when you're creating your summary, these are the criteria you should be looking for. I've explained the main idea of the overall article effectively in my opening sentence. I have clearly explained all the main or important points in the article in a logical order. All writing is in my own words. I have paraphrased quotes rather than using them directly. So in other words, I don't quote everybody. I create a summary of their words as well. I have not introduced my own opinion or any outside material. I have only included information from the actual article. All my sentences have a subject, a predicate, and express a complete thought. I have used appropriate and strong vocabulary choices. I have corrected any convention errors, such as capitalization, usage, punctuation, and spelling. And in my good copy, I have made significant changes to improve my writing in the areas of meaning and clarity, tone or style, sentence variety and fluency, vocabulary, and conventions. Okay, so this is the actual rubric that I use when I'm marking, and it's not really that different. Um, the rough copy's getting 10 marks, the good copy's getting 10 marks. The first section I look at is your thinking and inquiry, the reasoning, and the format. Has essential information been included? Have you included the supporting details? And have you accurately summarized the main idea? And then I'm looking at communication, like how you get your ideas across. Have you used a descriptive vocabulary? Are the ideas clearly and precisely stated? Or are they hard to understand? Have you used a logical sequencing of ideas or events? Some people automatically summarize in order, but sometimes people just kind of go, they don't look back at what they read and they just put anything down. And then they think of another thing and they don't think about the order of stuff. So order is important too, okay? Knowledge and understanding your organization. Does it look like there's a logical plan of development, that you've followed the paragraph format, topic, body sentences, closing sentences? And also this is looking at sentence structure a little bit. Well-developed sentences, they're complex, they're not just simple. You've linked up ideas and information. And finally is application. And this is stuff like the grammar, the spelling, the punctuation, and also that appropriate visual presentation. This is especially important in the good copy. It should be neat, tidy, easy to read, right? If I'm holding the paper up to the light, trying to understand what you've written, then it's really hard for me to get a good mark because I don't know what you've said. Okay, biggest thing whenever you're doing any kind of writing for anything in this course is remember to use good paragraphing format. You should have an opening sentence that states the main idea of the topic. The body sentences should usually, I think I originally had 8. I'm going to say here, because 6, 4 to 8 sentences that add details, examples, or events to the main idea. This is the biggest portion of the paragraph. Now, it has to be from the original summary. You can't add your own stuff, okay? And then the closing sentence will restate the main idea in new words. Remember the main features of a summary. It should be much shorter than the original article. It should include all the major points. The minor details don't need to be included. Somebody reading the summary should understand all the important facts of the original article. None of your own opinion should be stated. Like you might be horrified by this article, but that's not what we're asking you to talk about. No outside information should be introduced. Like let's say you just were doing a bunch of stuff on water operator training. That might be really relevant if you were going to do like an informational report, but it's not relevant when you're doing a summary. A summary should only include the information from the article or text that you're summarizing, okay? Now, stating the main idea. Sometimes when people are trying to state the main idea, they think I mean like, hey, give me one word, right? But that's really oversimplifying at this level of education, okay? So if I said, oh, I've just read this article and it's about bees, bees is kind of the topic, but it's not really telling me the main idea about the topic. A much better thing would be to look at the article and think about, okay, what's it telling me about bees? And so an example here would be the main idea is that bees are vital for the survival of plants, which we rely on as food. So when I'm saying a detailed sentence, that's what I mean. Maybe I'm reading a different article and it's all about Christmas. But if I just say the main idea is Christmas, Christmas isn't an idea, it's a topic, but it's not an idea. Now I could get more detailed. The main idea is how developing traditions for Christmas can help families and friends feel more loved and connected to each other. Now, I could be writing a completely different article. Maybe another article is all about how the commercialism of the modern day is ruining the spirit of Christmas. It just depends. That's why just saying Christmas isn't enough to tell me what the main idea of the article is about, okay? If you've come up with what you think is a main idea, but you're not positive it's the main idea, One thing you can do is what they call a sentence check. And it's where you grab a sentence from the story, read it, and then see if it would match or support the main idea. If it seems like either it's completely off topic or it disagrees with the main idea, then it may be that the way you've phrased the main idea or the way you've understood it is not quite accurate, or it's incomplete, or it's big enough. And try this with a few different sentences from different parts of the article. If pretty consistently the sentences seem to confirm what you've already said was the main idea, then you're probably okay. The next thing is, how do you decide if a fact is major or important, or if it's minor and unimportant? Okay, there's a couple different ways. First way you can try is, a lot of times paragraphs will start in the very first sentence with the most important idea. And the rest of the paragraph is kind of adding small details or examples to try to prove or explain their idea. And in that case, those details would be minor or unimportant. Now, not every single paragraph will start this way. It should, but I can't guarantee it. You'll have to read the actual article to make sure. Here is some more information on that concept, because this is the hardest part, I think, really. Let's say I was reading an article, and the main idea of the article is to explain the different reasons that helped to cause World War II. And I've split them into the major ideas, in other words, things that are very important to the article, and things that are minor ideas or details, things that are just not that important and that you don't need to mention. So first of all, you want to think about, will it help explain that big idea, the main idea or the overall argument of the text? So if I say something like, the harsh monetary punishments against Germany in World War I were one cause of World War II. Okay, does that relate to our idea about explaining reasons for World War II? Absolutely, it's right there. What are some reasons? Here's one reason. Now, the minor details usually explain the major idea, not the main idea. So here's an example. Many people in Germany felt resentful and humiliated that they had to pay for the cost of the war, and they looked for ways to end this shame. So that's not necessarily tying back into the main idea per se. It's more giving you more information about the major idea. Okay. So it's interesting, but it could be left out of the summary without losing any important information or ideas. It depends a little bit on how big an article and how long your summary is. The longer the article, the longer the summary. The way I've heard it is that a summary should be maybe about a quarter the length of an article. So it should be significantly shorter, okay? You're not retelling, you're just giving the highlights. Okay, here are some other examples. The supporting details, or which are also considered the minor details, might begin with words like this. For example, for instance, in addition, another, in fact, furthermore, moreover, therefore, as a result, consequently, first, second, third, next, then, last, finally. Now, this is not 100%, okay? So words like in addition might be giving you a new argument rather than giving you an example. So you got to be kind of cautious. So here's a little paragraph, and then we're going to kind of break it apart into big idea and minor ideas. So neighborhood watch programs are good for everyone. One reason for this is that neighborhood watch units unite neighbors in a common goal. Neighbors work together to protect each other. One family's security became everyone's concern. Another reason is that neighborhood watches reduce crime in a couple of ways. Posted signs act as deterrents to criminals. Neighbors in these areas are more likely to report any suspicious persons or activities. And finally, watch programs keep neighbors alert. Because neighbors meet regularly, everyone is more aware of events, rules, or changes in the community. Okay, so the main idea is that neighborhood watch programs are good for everyone. That would be my opening sentence. And now I'm looking for major ideas. The neighborhood watches unite the neighbors in a common goal. Neighborhood watches can reduce crime. and watch programs keep the neighbors alert. All the minor stuff, the small bits, I don't necessarily have to include. Using your own words. This is the other big issue. And I know that this can be really challenging for people. Sometimes when you're trying to summarize a key sentence or a concept, it can be really hard to figure out how to change it around a little bit and put it into our own words. And there are several ways you can, some like techniques and strategies you can try to help you put things into your own words. First of all, if there's any examples in the sentences, leave them off. That's the very easiest thing. Then think of synonyms for some of the words. That can be another easy way to change things around. You might also make a sentence shorter or like easier to understand to show that you really do comprehend it. Sometimes you could combine several sentences into one detailed sentence that just keeps the most important information. If you keep using all of those different techniques, you will end up with a summary that includes the important information in your own words without copying word for word. Keep in mind, when you're copying word for word, there's two things. Oh, what happened there? My apologies. Somehow managed to give myself an extra slide. One, this is considered plagiarism, right? If you copy word for word, is plagiarism. Plagiarism is a big fancy school way of saying cheating, okay? The other thing is, I know it's really easy to want to use other people's words, but sometimes it means that you're not really understanding what God said. When you have to think about it and put it into your own words, it really helps you understand a concept in a deeper way. So that's one reason why we ask for it. Okay, so here we're looking at closing sentences. Remember that an opening sentence will state the idea, and then we have a closing sentence. And a closing sentence will restate the main idea, right? A lot of the techniques we used for putting things in our own word work here as well, because it's kind of similar in terms of we're taking one sentence and trying to say the same thing, but in a new and interesting way. So if our original sentence was, there was a wide range of reasons for World War II, we want to find a new way to say that will help us wrap up our paragraph. First of all, I can just use different words. All these reasons worked together to create the horror of World War II, which more than 50 years later still troubles us. Okay, now I'd only want to put that part about troubling us if it was kind of somewhere indicated in the article. Sometimes you can make an overall concluding point in the paragraph. Like, in conclusion, no one issue was solely responsible for World War II. It was the result of many events. Now, I want to point out, no one issue was solely responsible for the World War II is one sentence. I've started a second sentence here. It was the result of many events, and I'm linking them with a semicolon because they're basically kind of connected, okay? But I couldn't do it with a comma, okay? I can also summarize the major details. Like if you made 3 main arguments, you can use a brief version of those main arguments to review it. So I could say World War II was the result of many factors: worldwide economic depression, anger over the Treaty of Versailles, that was the part about the German reparations, German Nazism, Japanese imperialism, and the failure of the League of Nations. Okay, so that's all fun and games for World War II history. Now, moving on. I'm going to move on to assignment 42. I'm just going to head back one quick second. Remember, between your rough and your good copy, you want to have done significant editing and significant revisions so there's a noticeable difference. You don't want to just cross off one spelling mistake or fix one capital. We're looking for major revisions that show that you understand how to play with words a little bit and how to restate things. Okay, moving on to assignment 42. This is a big assignment. We're not going to get to discussing the entire thing today. I don't think. I'm going to get through, I think, 2 of the parts. So part A, is where you read an article. It's called A Guide for Scholarships, Awards, and Applications. It's by Rob Taylor, and then you answer the questions that follow. Be sure that you use complete sentences when you write. I'm going to include the first page of the article, but I'm not going to go over the entire one. It's quite long. You'll have to read the whole thing yourself, but this is just how to start it. Now the I here is obviously not me. I'm reading what Rob Taylor wrote. So the I is Rob Taylor, not Jill Percy here. When I was in school at both the University of Toronto and Ryerson, I didn't receive a cent of scholarship money. I did receive an honorarium for being president of the Student Residence Council at U of T Scarborough, and I did receive some money from the Millennium Scholarship Fund, but that was more like loan relief than a scholarship. I had to be in debt to get the money, and it was applied directly to my OSAP debt. While it was nice to have less OSAP to pay back, having some actual cash would have been nice too. The reason I didn't receive any scholarships was twofold. First, I wasn't a brilliant enough student to be automatically chosen to receive a scholarship. I got by with high B's and the occasional low A until my last year at Ryerson, when I seemed to hit A's pretty much across the board. And then it was too late to get a scholarship. The second reason I didn't get any scholarships was that I was ill-informed. This was partly due to the limited resources available to me and partly due to my own laziness. When I was in high school, there was no World Wide Web, and internet was a funny-sounding word my uncle used occasionally. I wasn't all that close to my high school guidance counselor, and I wasn't even thinking beyond the summer when I applied to university. And then it goes on to describe how come he now is involved with writing about scholarships, and then also kind of talks a lot about how to get a scholarship. This is an actual real resource. It's still current. It's still active. If you go to scholarshipscanada.com, you can enter all sorts of terms. So scholarships are granted for all sorts of reasons and by all sorts of people, businesses, governments, different people who want to sponsor things. So when I entered Aboriginal as a search term, just to see if what came up for Aboriginal people, over 361 possible scholarships came up. Some are for very small amounts of money. Some are for much larger sums of money. Some are for specific universities. In other words, you'd only get it if you went to, say, University of Toronto. Others are for specific fields of study, like this is only for students who are studying journalism, but it could be used at any school. Now, not every search term is going to give you a great deal. Things like hockey only brought up one scholarship, which isn't surprising because Canadian schools don't offer sports scholarships. However, nursing, for example, brought up 974 scholarships for that field. You do need to create an account to see some details. You can see a little bit of it, but you can't see all the details without an account. But it is a free account, okay? And if you are planning to go on to college or university, it's really a good idea to check it out because honestly, we all need extra money. School is expensive, and there's all sorts of scholarships out there that you might qualify for, right? It isn't always about being the best student. Sometimes they're looking for things like who needs financial aid or who comes from a certain area, or sometimes I've seen age ones, like they're specifically looking for mature students or specifically looking for a certain race or certain genders, things like that. Like they're always wanting to promote girls in math and sciences. So you may see scholarships for that, things like that. Okay, so number one, use your own words to explain why Rob Taylor, who did not receive any money when he was going through school, has taken the time to write this article. Okay, this is worth 8 marks, so you really want to make at least 4 sentences, right? One sentence is just not going to get you enough marks because you're not explaining enough. He goes into quite some detail about why he didn't get it, okay? Number 2, list the steps that Rob suggests to get a scholarship in order, and then give a brief explanation of each step. That is worth 10 marks. I'm looking that you recognize what a step is, and I'm looking that you know how to explain the step. Number 3, do you think you will use Rob's advice in this article to get a scholarship, Why or why not? Okay, I'm going to look at these a little bit more closely. Number one. Okay, so in your own words, explain why Rob has written the article. Now, in your own words doesn't mean make everything up. It means look at the article and then put Rob's words and what he said into your own phrasing rather than copying what he said word for word. It's just like the summarizing we did, right? It's just a tiny summary instead of a big summary. Okay. If I'm asking you to write 4 sentences, that means there's at least 4 important reasons why Robert wrote this article about scholarship. So make sure you have enough reasons there, okay? Number 2, not all of the subheadings in the article are really a full step. There's a few where people just kind of list everything that was darker, like, and thought that meant if it's a heading, it's a step, but not all the time. Sometimes it's just a little bit of extra information. So be cautious with that. Now, the idea of a brief explanation. Some of the steps are really short and might be very easy to convey in a sentence. Some of the steps are more complicated and might need several sentences to get across the idea. So brief means compared to the paragraph, not like only tell me the smallest amount you can, okay? And again, make sure to explain it in your own words. I've read this article a lot of times now, and at this point, I really do notice when people are copying word for word, okay? So try to avoid doing that. All right, paraphrasing or putting things in your own words. Here is an example. This is actually from another part of this same article. I've read some pretty sad emails from students looking for help because they were not prepared. One student from the Maritimes wrote to scholarshipscanada.com saying that she was having to choose between leaving the power connected and the phone working. She had no money and didn't know whether she was going to be able to make rent the following month. I did some investigating and found that her school could have given her an emergency bursary. She met the qualifications for it, but she had missed the deadline by 2 weeks. So I want to rephrase this. I need to shorten it. I can rearrange it. I can use synonyms so that I'm summarizing it and it reflects my understanding of what he wrote rather than just using his exact words. So here's one example of how I could have summarized this. School is very expensive, and sometimes students can end up broke and struggling to pay rent because they haven't looked into bursaries for themselves. Schools can sometimes help out with emergency bursaries, but you need to be sure you meet the qualifications and the deadlines. Okay, that is a summary. It's not the exact thing. I also would add scholarships. By the way, if you're asking what the difference is between a scholarship and a bursary, scholarships, you know what? I'm gonna rephrase that. A bursary versus a loan. Bursary means they're giving you the money. You don't usually have to pay it back. A loan like OSAP means you have to give the money back. So it's a little bit different. Scholarships, you often don't even see the money. It's not always, but often it just goes directly to the school. So it's useful, but it may not be cash in hand. Number 3, do you think you will use Rob's advice in this article? Why or why not? Only you know yourself well enough to be able to predict whether you're going to use the advice. You do have to explain why you will. You can't just write, oh, I probably won't do it. I don't know why. So to be able to give a better explanation may require some self-reflection. So think about, usually we base predictions about people's actions, including our own, on their past behaviors and actions. What in your past or current behaviors suggests that you might or might not follow these steps? Sometimes we base our predictions about people's actions on their character traits. What kind of character traits do you have that would suggest you might or might not follow this advice? We could also look at your goals. Do you need a scholarship to accomplish your goals? Not everybody does. So some example sentences that you might use, things like, I probably will look at scholarships in the future because, and then you'd finish the sentence. My goals for the future are, and you'd tell me your goals. So how does that connect to applying for scholarships? In the past, I typically have, and you would tell me a behavior. Therefore, in the future, I think I will, and predict your behavior. I know I am, and you'd give me a character trait like conscientious, laid back, rich, frugal, serious, casual, which means that, and you would also give me a prediction about whether you think you would use it or not. Okay, that's part A. Now we are moving on to part B. Part B has 2 or 3 questions of its own. I have modified this a little bit from last year. So if some of this doesn't look quite familiar, it may mean that you have the older version, in which case reach out to me or reach out to your DEC so you can get the most current version, okay? So this is about identifying resources. First of all, choose any career of interest to you and list 3 reasons why you might want to pursue it. You need to use the same career for all the rest of the questions. So please choose a career that you're actually interested in so you won't be bored by the assignment. Now, let's say you're having trouble picking a possible career. I have included some information on choosing careers. One thing is, I think we looked at this before, the Canadian Job Bank website. It's been updated. It looks a little bit different now from last year. And you would just go to www.jobbank.gc.ca and it will bring up this and it will see how it says right in the middle there, choose a career. You would click on that and then it will bring up like some career quizzes, right? These are kind of fun little quizzes that help you think about what you're interested in, what your abilities are, what kind of activities you like to do at work. This sounds like funny, but like, for example, I love doing art. I don't know if I'd want to like paint for a living though, right? If I had to like create art for job ads, I might kind of find it frustrating because I wouldn't get to paint what I want. I'd have to paint what the job wants. So not everything you love or are interested in always works as work. So that's something to think about. Another website about choosing career is this one is the National Occupational Classification. And this is this massive database that basically looks at all the jobs that are available in Canada. And it looks at what kind of skills you need, what kind of interests you need, what kind of training you need. This, if you're still trying to figure out what you want to do, this is a great resource to go to and check it out. Now, then we move to question 2, which I want to go next to. Here we go. For question number 2, research information on your chosen career, either through internet or print resources. Now, I know I have a few students that are in areas without internet. If you're one of those students, check with the DEC or the tutor for an alternate assignment that I've provided. If you have used internet resources, please print them off and send them to me along with this assignment. If you used a book instead, let me know the title and the author of the book or books so I'm kind of aware and can take a quick look at it myself, okay? Now, I'm going to do one more slide and then talk about there's a chart in this new version, and I want you to use this research you do to fill out the chart, okay? These are some of the places that you can look for information. College programs of training, university programs of training, job boards, businesses that employ a lot of people in that job. For example, a hospital might have quite a big career section on medical jobs. Apprenticeships programs for trade jobs like construction and stuff. Career-oriented magazines, like there's magazines that are just for pilots, magazines that are just for teachers, magazines that are just for people who are in the service industry. Government job sites, which we talked about one already, and then sometimes union or organizational websites might have information as well. So here is the overall table that you need to fill out. And if you can see on the left-hand side is the topic or the question, and then on the right-hand side is, over here is the space where you could put things in there. So first of all, name at least one college or university that you could get training at to do the job, whatever that job is. How many years to complete this training? How much would it cost per year to do this training? How much would it cost to complete all the training over all the years? You should be able to locate all of this information on any college website that offers the program. Remember that not all colleges offer all programs. Some may specialize in arts, some might specialize in vocational stuff. It really depends on the college. Some of the possible college sites to check out: Seven Generations Institute, Confederation College, Contact North has a page called Study Online, and then there's the overall Ontario Colleges page. Now, pre-COVID, there was not a lot you could do online. Since COVID, a lot more colleges have stuff that you can do online that you might easily be able to do right from your own house, as long as you have good internet connection. So don't assume that you've got to travel to do it. For some courses you do, but not for everything. So it's worth checking out. All right, Seven Generations. If you come up to the post-secondary, secondary is high school, so this is after high school, and it will tell you what kind of programs they are. It will also tell you where they offer them, right? Because not everything's offered in Sioux Lookout. Discipline means like what department's it in and what kind of degree you get. Is it a degree, a diploma, certificate? Is it part-time or full-time? And next intake means when does the next class or group of classes start, right? So September is common, January is common. Sometimes there's a spring one of April. Sometimes there's a summer one of June or July. So it kind of depends when you want to start and when you've got time, when you have money, all those kind of good things. So here is an example where I pulled up information on becoming an early childhood educator. So this is where you would work in like preschools, right? And it talks to you about what kind of courses you need to take. It talks about the fees, how much it costs. It gives you who to talk to. It lists here some of the future careers. I kind of pulled up we don't have time to do everything, but anyways, here is the site. If you go right here to programs, now they also have a driving school. They also have high school, but let's say you're wanting to look at things for after high school. Post-secondary is your thing. I'm sorry that my internet's working a little bit slow today. I do have some other things open, but we'll see if it comes up. Okay. So let's say you only want to work in Sioux Lookout or go to school. Well, then you would click Sioux Lookout, and you can see, unfortunately, they only offer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science in Nursing, Health Office Admin, Personal Support Worker, Practical Nursing. Or maybe you don't care about the location. Location could be anything, doesn't matter to you. But what field you're going in matters. Maybe you only want to work in health. Maybe you only want to work in skilled trades. So if I pulled up skilled trades, okay, there's only 2 offered: culinary skills and welding techniques. And unfortunately, both of those are in Fort Frances. So this is a site that you can go through, but like I said, it doesn't have everything. One of the other sites, Confederation College, same thing. They've got programs. You'd hit the program search. Not everybody's aware, there are Confederation colleges all over the place. Here, they're just listing things alphabetically, but you can also go in here. Areas of interest, apprenticeships, aviation, business, health, media arts. Program load is like full-time, part-time, or online. And then campus. Campus matters if you're going to be attending, obviously. All right. And then credential, this may or may not matter to you. It depends what you're looking for. International, I don't think that's really an issue for us. So let's say I wanted online. I just want to see what's available online. How about that? Okay. Oh, there's a few things. Accommodation and human right management, autism and behavioral sciences, bookkeeping, business fundamentals, administrative professionals, all sorts of good things. Oh, there's quite a bit here. So that is one way you can look things up. A sec. Yep, we just did that. Study Online is run by Contact North. A lot of communities have Contact North. You can definitely look things up here, but you could also go down and talk to whoever's running Contact North in your community if you have it. This actually kind of links into, as far as I can tell, it links into a main site that's used for all Ontario colleges, but it may have some alternate information as well. So it's worth checking both. The alternate one is ontariocolleges.ca. This shows all the the colleges across all of Ontario. Hang on a second. Sorry, it's trying to let me in. It doesn't want to let me in. Hang on. Let me try it this way. Sometimes that happens. Okay. So, same thing here. There's categories. You could click on it. Once you click on it, there'll be a bunch of other filters that you can apply. If you just tried to read everything, it would be too much. There's way too much available to read. Let me pull it up. Huh. There we go. Hang on. I don't know why it wouldn't let me get the other part, but it wouldn't. So this one is at Centennial College. It is full-time. It is interactive media management, but it is an online course. In other words, you wouldn't have to move to that area in order to take the course. All right, it's going so slow. I'm going to move on. All right, going on. Are there any prerequisites needed to complete this training? Now, the college websites will tell you if you need to have certain courses or certain ages, or if there's any previous training or work experience. What is the current outlook for this career? Outlook is referring to how likely it is that there's jobs available in this profession. So for example, wagon maker used to be quite popular, but it's no longer a big career, right? So this one's kind of important. I'll show you that site in a second. And then what are some of the typical salaries that people make in this career? That's what we got. Typical job duties can be found in job ads or in the government job bank site. Typical personality traits, again, it can be on the government job site, but it might be in a job ad. And at the very end, make sure you tell me 2 places that you obtained this information. If you had internet stuff, 2 websites. If it was textbooks, preferably 2 textbooks. Tell me the URL, tell me the name and the author so I can locate it. Some of the job boards, if you're looking for information, can be things like Indeed, Monster, Simply Hired, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Career Builder, or Workopolis. They will often include job ads, information about salaries, job duties, all those kind of things. Job outlooks. This is a site called the Job Bank. The Government of Canada runs it. They do have job ads, but they also have all sorts of information about career planning and information about what's going on in the job market right now. So if I look up early childhood educator, and I look up there's a spot where I'll say, hang on, labor market information. If I click on that, then it will talk about outlooks. And it talks about sort of generically all the way across the country, and then you can specifically look in your province. So the outlook right now is good for jobs in the period from 2023 to 2025. Why is it good? There's a lot of employment growth. There's some positions that are going to become open due to retirement. What type of employers are there? What are the main trends? What skills do I need to succeed? What other information will I find helpful? Then it gives you some kind of main facts about stuff if you wanted to. And then after this, I didn't include it, but it will list some of the major cities in that province and say how good the job outlooks are in each city. Because sometimes some places like, say, Toronto might have a lot more job openings for a certain type of job than, say, Thunder Bay or Sudbury. And then wage. If you look under wage report, it will tell you what area you're kind of in. And then what's the low wage, which would be minimum wage? What's the higher level of wage? And then what's the median? Median is it's the middle, obviously, but it's also like what most people in that field tend to make. So as you can see, unfortunately, being an early childhood educator does not pay very good money. I don't know why. It's a pretty important job, but they have not continued to increase things. Okay. Where are we? Oh, and we are done. Okay. So tomorrow I will look at part C and we'll start wrapping up because we only have 2 more classes. If you have any questions, please call me and let me know what you need help with. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you tomorrow.